Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of our Sheltered Stasis playthrough. Today we will be using some strategic thinking to get us closer to escaping the planet. To start with, we can have Nancy and Gregory continue tending to their needs from the expedition that they came back from in the last episode. Right now, Gregory is getting some rest, and Nancy is taking a shower. In the meantime, Mark is fixing the door, but once he's done doing that, we can have him craft a lockpick set. Of all of the things we need to make the lockpick set, the only resource that would be needed in other projects is the metal, but that is a common material that is easily obtained elsewhere. After starting that, Lucy can get a bit of rest, and Nancy can get something to eat and then use the bathroom. Before she has the chance to relieve herself, though, another round of worms tunnels into the base. We will have Nancy initiate the battle with the worms, not only because she's the closest, but also because she's our courageous fighter. For this fight, we'll bring Mark along with Nancy to give him the opportunity to get some combat experience. To start off with equipment, we'll have Nancy equip the hatchet that we found in the end of the last episode. Despite the hatchet requiring one more strength than she has, its damage numbers of 30 to 35 damage is almost double that of the rock, so even though Nancy won't be able to use it to its full potential yet, it is still a substantial upgrade. In addition to the hatchet, of course, we'll also equip her with half of the available medkits. For Mark, we will equip him with a rock and the other half of the medkits. As I said in the last episode, encounters with the worms are more of a cleanup job than a life-threatening fight, so I will speed up these fights to allow for more time for more interesting things. In this fight, Nancy and Mark each get a kill. We'll put the 2 new worm husks as well as our equipment back into the shelter storage, see how much XP we gained, and move on. From this combat experience, Nancy has leveled up her strength to level 9, which is the minimum level required to use the hatchet to its full potential. With the worms taken care of, we'll let Nancy get back to using the restroom. Mark has finished crafting the lockpick set now, so we'll send him down to the living quarters while we decide what he should be doing. For now, though, let's start preparing for our next expedition. The first thing that needs to be done before going on our next expedition is to upgrade our hazmat suits. In the end of the last episode, when our expedition returned, we were rewarded with an upgrade point for each of our hazmat suits. There are 4 different things that we can upgrade with our hazmat suits. We can put it into storage, battery, armor, or speed. Adding points to the storage stat will increase the carrying capacity of the suit, making it important for long distance travels or hitting up large groups of buildings. Adding points to the battery stat will increase the lifetime of the battery, in turn increasing the distance they can travel on the map. Adding points to the armor stat will increase the damage resistance the suit has in combat, as well as the number of bullets that the suit can deflect. We will definitely want to have the armor maxed whenever we decide to go to the laboratories. And finally, adding points to the speed stat will increase the speed that our expedition travels on the map. Now, although it would make sense that if you were traveling faster, you would need less battery to travel the same distance on the map, this is unfortunately not the case, so increasing battery is the only way to increase the maximum distance we can travel. Additionally, with the suits, each suit can be customized in a different way. For example, we could give Gregory a point in armor, while we could have Nancy have a point in storage. For the time being, we'll have Gregory have a point in armor, we'll give Nancy a point in speed, we'll give Mark a point in speed, and we'll give Lucy a point in armor. The reason why I'm having half of them have armor and half of them have speed is because the half that has armor will be staying at the base for the next expedition, while the half that has speed will be going out on the next expedition. Now that I've upgraded their hazmat suits, we're ready to start that next expedition. As I said, for this trip we're going to be taking Nancy and Mark with us. The reason why is because Nancy is our best fighter and Mark has the best perception. The goal of this expedition is slightly different than the last one. For this one, we are simply trying to search 7 different locations, get at least 1 kill, and maybe even get the next point for distance traveled. Each of those goals I just mentioned would get us an extra point for our hazmat suits, and I want to level up our hazmat suits a little bit before we travel out farther into the wasteland, so that way we could carry more items with us. On this expedition, we are searching 6 new locations, as well as the 3 places closest to our base that we've already searched before. I put points into speed for this expedition so that way it could be done as quickly as possible, and that way we can upgrade our hazmat suit the fastest, and therefore get to a larger expedition faster. So just like in our recent fight with the worms, we'll have Nancy equip the hatchet, and we'll have Mark equip a rock. We'll give them 1 stack of 5 medkits to bring along with them, and we'll also make sure to equip the lockpick set. Now that we're done gearing up, we'll send them off on their way. While they're leaving the shelter, we should give Gregory and Lucy something to do. To start with, we'll have Lucy equip her hazmat suit to fix the outer shelter door as well as the 80% filters on the surface. While she's doing that, Gregory can get a drink of water, and after getting a drink of water, his needs are nicely in check, so we can have him start reading some books. We would use this time using a punching bag to train combat skills, however, we don't have that yet, so training perception will have to do. Meanwhile, Lucy has wandered all the way back down to the water container, so we'll have her come back up and fix the filters. It's not long until Nancy reports that they have spotted a mutant in the distance, and we'll have them engage them. Nancy manages to land all 3 hits and kills the mutant in 1 turn. This is in no small part thanks to the hatchet and its potential to 3-hit enemies. As usual, for winning this fight, we get a set of burnt clothes and a little bit of combat XP. With that, we'll continue on our way. As they continue working at the base, Mark tells us that they've arrived at the police station, and we will tell them to search it. Nothing interesting happens until they're done searching the police station, so I'll skip ahead until we're examining the items. Because this is just the start of our expedition, we still have an empty inventory, so we can just grab everything and move on. The only notable things we got here was a transistor and a book. Back at the base, Gregory has gone off to bed because his tiredness is maxed. If we try to force him to continue reading books, he will tell us that he is too tired for that right now, so if we want him to continue reading, then we have no other choice but to let him sleep for the moment. While Gregory is sleeping, Mark reports back to the base that they have arrived at the next police station, and just like the last one, we'll tell them to search it. Lucy has finished fixing the first shelter door, and now she'll get to work fixing the filters. Before she can start fixing the filters though, Nancy tells us that they're done searching the police station, and we can examine the items. A few more interesting things are found here than at the last police station, most notably the sledgehammer, which is one of the best melee weapons in the game, but that's only if you have the required strength to use it, and with a required strength of 16, none of our survivors have anywhere near the required strength that is necessary to use it effectively. Although we won't be able to use it for a while, it would be silly not to pick it up. In addition to the sledgehammer, we will of course grab every other item that is here, which consists of a burnt-out laptop, 2 pieces of metal, a set of wiring, a few pieces of wood, some garlic, a piece of wool, and a couple of other items that can be used as salvage in the item fabricator. The next thing that happens then is that Nancy tells us they're ready to search the pharmacy, and we'll have them do that right away. While they're searching the pharmacy, our item fabricator has finished making the 3 pieces of leather that we started at the end of the last episode, so we'll go ahead and collect that and start making the next set of items right away. This next set of items will be the last set of items that we need to make our first punching bag, and that is 3 pieces of rope. To make these 3 pieces of rope, we'll use 19 pieces of wood, 12 sets of wiring, and 13 nails. We have no use for these items anymore, so they'll serve us better in the item fabricator. After we're done queuing that up, Gregory wakes up again, and we can have him continue reading. After he starts reading, we're radioed by Nancy that they are ready to examine the items at the pharmacy, and we are indeed interested to see what they have found. Here we can grab a burnt-out laptop, a set of burnt clothes, a pipe, a piece of rubber, a ball of wool, a spring, a piece of leather, a plastic bottle, and a mannequin head. We had to get rid of 4 different types of broken items to pick up everything. I would rather have the plastic bottle and the mannequin head over any of the other salvageable items that are there, because they can stack to a higher amount, and when salvaged in the recycling plant, their components will yield more total points for the item fabricator than any of the other items that we left behind. Immediately after that, we'll tell Mark to start searching the next location over, which is a farm. On the surface of our shelter, Lucy has finished fixing the filters, so we'll have her return the hazmat suit. After she has returned the suit, Nancy tells us that they have run into a mutant at the farm, and we will get involved. In reality, though, this just means one more kill for us, a set of burnt clothes, and a bit of XP for Nancy. As we're telling Lucy to get some rest back at our shelter, Mark radios that they're ready for us to examine the items at the farm. We pick up and leave behind quite the variety of items here. In the end, though, the only notable things we picked up at this farm was a piece of rubber, a motor, a pipe, a paint can, and a scrap pile. And with that, let's continue on our way. Before we can get much else done, we are once again radioed by our expedition telling us that they have come across the next location. This time it's a pharmacy. As usual, we'll have them search it right away. At this point, we can also see how big of a difference the speed upgrade is making. They're already over halfway done with this expedition, and while this expedition is a lot shorter than the last one, they're still moving at a good pace. Nothing else of interest happens until Nancy reports back that they are done searching the pharmacy, where we will pick up a mannequin arm and a valve, and we will leave behind a spring. Before they come across their next location, Nancy tells us that they have bumped into a mutant on the road, and as usual, we will get involved. Once again, Nancy lands all 3 attacks, but this time it's not enough to finish him off, and as a result, she is disarmed by the mutant. This gives Mark a chance to finish off the mutant and get a kill for himself. His attack lands, and that means that Mark has earned himself a little bit of XP. That XP was enough to level up both his dexterity and strength to level 7. As Gregory continues to read and Lucy continues to rest, Mark tells us that they're ready to search the pharmacy, and we will give them the green light to do so. While we're waiting for them to finish searching the pharmacy, Lucy can use the bathroom and then get a bite of something to eat, and Gregory can take a break from reading to get some rest. It doesn't take long after that until our expedition tells us they're done searching. Here we will pick up a piece of rubber, a piece of metal, and 5 pieces of wood. The question mark was the items behind a hacked terminal, but for the time being we can't do anything about that, so let's continue on our way. Back at the shelter, Lucy has finished tending to her needs, and if we take a look at the clipboard really quick, we can see that for the most part everything is in good repair, so we'll just have her fix up a couple things in the living quarters before she gets to playing with the toy box. We're having her fix things first, because we'd rather keep everything in full repair so that way when we get our punching bag, we can focus more time on training our combat skills than repairing items around the base. A quick look at the top of our shelter, and we see that apparently mutants get food poisoning too. While that mutant is getting back up, Nancy tells us that they have come across the next house, and we will tell them to search it. Next up on the chore list is fixing the stove and the bed. As Lucy is fixing the stove, Mark is ready to examine the items at the house, and thanks to our lockpick set, we also discovered 2 pieces of fertilizer here. The looting highlights of this house includes a piece of metal, 2 pipes, a valve, a hinge, a scrap pile, a book, and the 2 pieces of fertilizer that we found with our lockpick set. Our expedition only has 2 more places to search before they're heading back home, and Mark tells us that they're ready to search the first one of those 2 places. Before Gregory gets back to reading, we'll have him water our planters, because both of them are dry and we don't want our plants to wilt. Okay, Mark is ready to examine the items at the shack, but we've already been here before, so the only thing we can grab is a mannequin arm before heading on our way. Before Lucy gets anywhere in the base, our expedition comes across the next shack, and we'll tell them to search it. Although we know that this shack is already empty, we still have a chance of encountering mutants here, and so long as we need more combat kills, we might as well search the location. While Gregory and Lucy are down here to water the plants, we'll also have them fix the planters, that way they don't have to come back down to fix them later. Once they're done fixing the planters, we'll have Gregory go back to reading, and Lucy can go play with the toy box. A quick radio to the base informs us that Nancy has run into mutants at the shack, and will tell them to engage them. Nancy once again lands all 3 melee attacks and is able to get the kill. We'll grab the burnt clothes, grab the XP, and continue on our way. Back at the base, Lucy can use the toy box a couple times to continue to work on her perception skill, and Gregory can continue reading at the bookshelf to work on his perception as well. After reading a couple of books, Gregory can take a break from reading to use the bathroom. Now it's been a while since we last heard from our expedition, so I'm beginning to get suspicious that the mutant on top of our base is preventing our expedition from coming back to the shelter. After taking a quick look at the map, I can confirm that they are indeed waiting for something to happen at the base, and I don't see anything else that could be preventing them from coming back other than the mutant on top of our shelter. In addition to that, we also have a few worms that just spawned in our shelter, so we'll have to deal with not only the mutant, but also the worms in order to get our expedition to come back to our shelter. Our first priority is to deal with the worms, because they have the potential to damage our power generator if we don't deal with them quickly, whereas the only thing the mutant on the surface is doing is preventing our expedition from returning back to our shelter. With that in mind, we'll have Gregory start the battle with the worms. To fight these worms, we'll have both of the members at our shelter equip rocks and all of the first aid kits. As usual, we'll speed up the fight with the worms. The only things relevant that happens is Gregory takes 6 damage and Lucy gets the kill. We get 2 worm husks from the kills, and the XP that Lucy gains from killing both of the worms is enough to level up both her strength and dexterity to level 9. Now that the worms in our base are cleaned up, we'll have both Lucy and Gregory equip their hazmat suits and get ready to deal with the mutant on the surface. Interestingly enough, Gregory is the only one that is able to fight here, despite the fact that Lucy also has her suit equipped. That's okay though, I'm sure Gregory can handle it. We'll equip Gregory with the rock and the first aid kit, and then we'll start the battle. This bulletproof vest icon with the number 1 next to it represents that we have 1 point of armor, and this is thanks to the armor upgrade point we put into Gregory's hazmat suit. On our turn, Gregory lands all 3 hits for 70 damage, and on the mutant's turn, the mutant disarms Gregory. We could either spend a turn picking up the weapon and then attack the mutant again, or we could simply just attack the mutant. We will use the latter option because the mutant is already at low health, and even though Gregory would only be using his bare hands, he still has the potential to finish it off this turn. If we picked our rock back up on the other hand, we would be guaranteed to do 0 damage. Gregory is able to land all 3 hits for 28 damage, and that means we only need to do 2 damage on our next turn. Unfortunately, the 2 HP that the mutant has left is enough for it to be able to land a hit that causes Gregory to start bleeding. This won't make a difference in the fight, however, because the next attack from the mutant results in him being countered and killed. With the mutant killed, we'll move all of our items back into the shelter storage, and we'll get a little bit of XP for Gregory. Also, now that the mutant is killed, our expedition should be coming back to the shelter any moment now. We're not out of the woods yet, though, because Gregory is still bleeding. Unfortunately, we don't have any bandages left over because we turned them all into medkits, so we'll have no other choice but to use a medkit. It's kind of a waste, but we don't want him bleeding out either. As Gregory is going to get himself patched up, we see Nancy and Mark coming back on the surface, which means that the mutant was definitely the problem preventing our expedition party from returning to the shelter. Once they make it inside of the shelter, we can see that we now have all of the possible upgrade points for searching locations. We were able to kill enough mutants to reach the first level in the combat kills category, and we also barely reached the first level for distance traveled. We also searched enough locations for Nancy to gain enough experience points to level up her perception. The loot highlights from this expedition include a future weapon upgrade in the form of a sledgehammer, some main quest objectives like some books and some fertilizer that will help us get more seeds, a decent chunk of components that will help us build the recycling plant in the punching bag, which include a transistor, 4 pieces of metal, a piece of leather, and a hinge. And last but not least, we also got some scrap items that will be very useful once we get the recycling plant built, which include 2 burnt out laptops and 2 scrap piles. From all of the experience we've gained on this expedition, we now have a total of 4 upgrade points per hazmat suit. For the time being though, now that our expedition has come back to the base, I think it's time to wrap up this episode. I apologize for this episode taking so long to come out. I got a pretty sore throat over the past week, and it's kind of hard to record audio when you can barely speak. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this episode of our Sheltered Stasis playthrough, and if you did and would like to support the channel, then you could like or comment on the video, and if you would like to support the channel further, then you could subscribe to stay tuned for more videos. Until then though, I hope you all have a good day, and in whatever you're doing, good luck and have fun.